I arrived early to my father's birthday dinner with Charlotte's hand warm in mine, already bracing myself for the familiar quiet. Margaret had chosen the restaurant. She always did. Spencer arrived 10 minutes later, laughing too loudly, already talking about steaks. The waiter placed menus down the table like invitations. Margaret slid one away from Charlotte before I could reach it. "Not for her," she said. Voice calm. "She's picky." Charlotte leaned closer to me. "Mom, I'm hungry." I squeezed her fingers. "We'll order in a minute." Margaret didn't look at me. "She can eat when we get home." The story in the video is a creative work by Family Afterlight. All characters and events are fictional, crafted to convey a humanistic message and the values of family. Spencer didn't hesitate. "I'll take the dry-aged steak," he said, then added a seafood tower and a glass of bourbon without glancing up. Lillian watched him, lips pressed together. My father adjusted his napkin and stared at the table. I said, evenly, "Charlotte will have the pasta." Margaret smiled, the kind that pretended nothing was happening. "It's a birthday dinner. Let's not complicate things." The waiter returned. "Pen ready?" I stood. The chair scraped louder than I meant it to. "I'll pay for my salad," I said, "and for my daughter's meal." Margaret blinked. "Excuse me. Everything else." I continued. "Steady now. Can go on your bill." Silence traveled the table. Spencer froze mid-reach. Lillian's eyes lifted to mine. "You're being dramatic," Margaret said. "No," I said. "I'm being clear." The waiter hesitated. I nodded to Charlotte. She ordered, small voice, "Careful." When the plate came later, she smiled like she hadn't all evening. That smile anchored me. Spencer leaned forward. "You don't do this to family." "I'm not," I said. "I'm stopping something." My father finally spoke. "Let's just get through dinner." I sat back down, heart loud, hands calm. If you've ever been told to swallow discomfort to keep the peace, stay with me. What happened next didn't start with shouting. It started with a bill, a boundary, and a child finally allowed to eat. The check didn't arrive right away. It never does when a table feels tense. Conversation limped forward in fragments, forced and brittle. Spencer lifted his glass. "To Dad," he said. 72 years. My father nodded. "Thank you for coming." Margaret leaned toward Charlotte, then pulled back as if remembering herself. "Next time, eat before we go out," she said lightly. "It avoids scenes." Charlotte looked at me, confusion tightening her mouth. I rested my hand on her knee under the table. When the waiter finally returned with the leather folder, he held it toward the center, unsure where it belonged. Margaret reached for it without looking at anyone. I stood again. "I'm paying now," I said. Margaret's hand paused midair. "Victoria, I said I would cover my salad and Charlotte's meal." Spencer laughed once. Sharp. "You can't be serious." I took out my wallet. My fingers didn't shake. "I'm serious." The waiter glanced between us. I handed him cash, counted carefully. "This covers the pasta and the salad. Keep the rest for the table." Margaret's face flushed. "You think this is appropriate?" "On your father's birthday, I think what's appropriate is not letting my child sit hungry so adults can feel comfortable." Lillian shifted in her chair. "Maybe we should just— This is ridiculous." Spencer cut in. "You always do this. You turn everything into a statement." I met his eyes. "I've been making statements quietly for years. You just never noticed." My father cleared his throat. "Let's not do this here." "That's what you always say." I replied. I didn't raise my voice. That seemed to bother Margaret more. The waiter returned the folder to Margaret. She opened it, then closed it again as if it had burned her. "This is humiliating," she said. "People are watching." "No," I said. "They're eating." Charlotte's plate arrived. The waiter set it down gently, then looked at me. "Is there anything else I can bring for your daughter?" Charlotte smiled. "I'm okay. Thank you." That, thank you, landed heavier than anything else. Spencer pushed his chair back an inch. You don't get to rewrite how this family works. I'm not rewriting it, I said. I'm stepping out of the part you assigned me. Margaret leaned back, arms crossed. You'll regret this. I gathered Charlotte's napkin from the floor. I already regret what I let happen. I took Charlotte's hand. We didn't rush. We didn't explain. We walked past the table, past the food, past the silence that had protected everything until it couldn't anymore. We didn't make it far before Margaret followed us into the narrow space by the host stand. She moved quickly, heels sharp against the floor, anger barely contained. You are not leaving like this, she said. Not after what you just did. I stopped. Charlotte stayed close to my side. We're leaving because dinner is over for us. Spencer appeared behind her, jaw tight. You embarrassed everyone. I didn't. I said. I refused to be embarrassed. Margaret folded her arms. That bill was nearly $1,000. You think that just disappears? I think you planned the dinner, I said, and you decided who ate. My father stood a few steps back, hands in his pockets. He looked older there, smaller. Victoria, he said quietly, let's talk tomorrow. Tomorrow has been coming for a long time. I replied. Spencer scoffed. You love acting like the martyr. I looked at him fully then. I covered your rent for 14 months. I said. That wasn't martyrdom. That was support. Margaret's eyes narrowed. This is not the place. It never is. I said. That's why it keeps happening. Charlotte tugged my sleeve. Mom, are we in trouble? No, I said, crouching to her level. We're done for tonight. Margaret's voice sharpened. You think walking out makes you strong? It makes me honest, I said. Spencer stepped closer. You don't get to decide how family works. I decide how my child is treated. The host approached, careful, polite. Everything okay here? Yes, I said. We're leaving. Margaret laughed, brittle. Of course you are. Running away as usual. I straightened. I stayed for years. That wasn't courage. This is... My father finally met my eyes. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't stop us. Outside. Charlotte took a breath she'd been holding. I liked the pasta, she said. I smiled. I'm glad. Behind us. The door opened. Margaret's voice followed, low and furious. This isn't over. I didn't turn around. I took Charlotte's hand and kept walking, not because I wanted to win, but because I wasn't willing to lose her to silence anymore. Jonathan was waiting in the car with the engine off, hands folded like he'd already sensed the shape of the night. Charlotte climbed in first, quiet now, her earlier relief settling into sleepiness. I shut the door and leaned against the hood for a moment before getting in. He didn't ask what happened. He said, Did she eat? Yes. I said. That was the problem. We drove in silence until the streetlights thinned. Then Jonathan spoke. Careful. Your brother called me last week. I looked at him. About what? He said the transfer hadn't gone through yet. I exhaled, because I didn't send it. Jonathan nodded once. I thought so. At home. Charlotte went straight to bed. Jonathan followed me into the kitchen, where the quiet felt earned. I opened my laptop and pulled up the bank app, the one I rarely showed anyone. I've been sending him $1,200 a month. I said, for 14 months. Jonathan leaned closer. He didn't interrupt. Rent, utilities, groceries when he said things were tight. I continued. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it wasn't hurting us. Jonathan's voice stayed even. It was, I didn't want to be the reason he failed. I said. Margaret made that very clear. Jonathan rested his palms on the counter. And what happens when you stop? He panics, I said. He calls it betrayal. Jonathan nodded. And what do you call it? I closed the laptop. An end. The phone buzzed on the counter. Spencer's name filled the screen. I didn't answer. A text followed. You don't just cut family off like that. Another message came through before I could put the phone down. Mom is furious. You need to fix this. Jonathan watched my face. You don't have to respond. I know, I said, but I will. I typed slowly. I'm no longer covering your rent. This isn't a punishment. It's a boundary. The reply came immediately. You promised. I felt something harden, not with anger, but with clarity. I never promised forever. I promised help. Jonathan squeezed my hand. Send it. I did. The phone rang. This time it was Margaret. I answered. You think you can embarrass us and then take money away? She said. What kind of daughter does that? The kind who stops pretending this is normal, I said. He has children, she snapped. He's trying. So am I said. And I won't do it at my child's expense. There was a pause, then a low laugh. You've changed. Yes, I said. I had to. I ended the call and set the phone face down. Jonathan didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The money I'd never talked about was finally out in the open, and it was no longer doing the talking for me. They didn't call first. The knock was sharp and deliberate, the kind meant to announce authority, not ask permission. Jonathan glanced at me from the hallway. Charlotte was in her room, door half closed. I opened the door to Margaret standing rigid, a folder clutched to her chest. Spencer hovered behind her, jaw set, eyes already scanning the house like he was taking inventory. We need to talk, Margaret said, stepping inside before I answered. I closed the door slowly. You should have asked. Spencer snorted. This isn't the time for rules. Margaret set the folder on the kitchen table and opened it with practiced confidence. You've been helping your brother, she said, consistently. That creates responsibility. She slid printed bank statements toward me. My name, my transfers. Jonathan came to my side. Those are voluntary payments. Margaret didn't look at him. When help becomes routine, it becomes expected. It becomes exploited. I said. Spencer leaned forward. You knew things were unstable. You knew I was counting on that money. I knew you were relying on me. I said. I didn't agree to carry you. Margaret's voice sharpened. Family carries each other. I carried you both, I said. Quietly. She straightened. You're punishing him. I'm stopping, I replied. There's a difference. Spencer slammed his hand on the table. You don't get to decide this alone. Jonathan spoke, calm and firm. She does. It's her income. Margaret turned to him, eyes cold. This doesn't concern you. It concerns our home, he said, and our child. Margaret pressed her lips together, then softened her tone. Victoria, think about what you're doing. He has boys. They love coming here. I reached into the drawer and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check. $600, I said, placing it on the table. This is the last money I will give you. Spencer stared at it. That doesn't even cover half a month. It covers closure, I said. Margaret's face flushed. You're being spiteful. I'm being done, I said. And the babysitting. I continued. Ends tonight. Spencer laughed once. Incredulous. You can't just cancel that. I can. I said. I am. Margaret's voice rose. You're tearing this family apart. Jonathan stepped closer to me. No. We're protecting ours. Silence settled. Thick and unfamiliar. Spencer looked at Margaret, waiting for rescue. She gathered the papers back into the folder, hands shaking now. You'll regret this, she said. I met her gaze. I regret not doing it sooner. They left without another word. I locked the door behind them, the click final and clear. In the hallway, Charlotte's door opened a crack. "Are they gone?" she asked softly. "Yes," I said, pulling her into my arms. "They are." Jonathan rested his hand on my shoulder. The house was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel empty. It felt like something heavy had finally been set down. The phone rang while I was folding laundry, Charlotte's socks paired neatly in my hands. I recognized the number before I answered. The school didn't usually call this late in the morning. "Mrs. Hale," the woman said, professional and careful. "This is Ms. Turner, the school counselor." My shoulders tightened. "Is Charlotte okay?" "She's fine," Ms. Turner said. "There's no emergency. We received a concern this morning and are required to follow up." "A concern about what?" There was a pause, just long enough to feel deliberate. "Her emotional well-being." I sat on the edge of the couch. "From whom?" "It was anonymous," she said. "That's all I can share. We'd like to schedule a welfare check with Child Services. It's standard." Standard. The word landed heavier than it should have. "When?" I asked. "In about 10 days. Ms. Turner said. "They'll contact you to confirm." I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the phone like it might ring again and undo itself. Jonathan found me still sitting there when he came home early. "What happened?" I told him. Every word felt measured. "Unreal." "They escalated," he said quietly. "I know." He knelt in front of me. "This doesn't mean they believe it. It means they said it," I replied. "That's enough to shake the ground." Charlotte came in from her room, homework folder hugged to her chest. "Mom, why does Grandma sound mad on the phone?" I hadn't heard the phone ring again. I hadn't noticed her listening. I pulled her close. Sometimes grown-ups don't like it when things change. She frowned. "Did I do something wrong at dinner?" "No," I said, faster than my thoughts. "You didn't do anything wrong." Jonathan stood. "We document everything." He said, "Food, school, routine, calm." I nodded. "I won't call them. I won't react." "Good," he said. "That's what they want." The phone buzzed again. A text from Spencer. "You've gone too far." I didn't answer. Another message followed. This could get ugly. Jonathan took the phone from my hand and turned it face down. Let them talk. That afternoon, I cooked Charlotte's favorite meal and watched her eat without hurry. She told me about spelling words and a drawing she'd finished in art class. Her voice was steady. Her world was intact. Later, after she was asleep, I stood in her doorway and let the quiet settle. Whatever they thought fear would do, they were wrong. I wasn't panicking. I was preparing. The days stretched differently once the visit was scheduled. Not longer, just heavier. Jonathan moved through the house with quiet intention, wiping counters twice, checking the calendar, printing school emails. I followed him, not because the house wasn't already in order, but because stillness felt dangerous. Charlotte noticed. She always did. "Are they coming today?" she asked one morning, shoes half-tied. "No," I said. "Not today." She nodded, absorbing it like a weather report. "Okay." At night, Jonathan and I sat at the kitchen table with our laptops open, not touching. He broke the silence first. "Your dad called." I looked up. "What did he say?" "He asked if we were okay." Jonathan hesitated. He didn't defend them. That landed somewhere between relief and grief. He never does. The phone rang again the next afternoon. This time it was a woman who introduced herself as Ms. Alvarez from Child Services. Her voice was calm, practiced. "We'll be there Thursday morning," she said. "We just want to see Charlotte and speak with you briefly." "Of course," I replied. "We'll be here." When I hung up, Jonathan exhaled. "You handled that well." "I learned young," I said. "Stay steady. Don't beg." Charlotte came home from school with a drawing folded carefully in her backpack. She handed it to me at the counter. "It's our family," she said. 3 figures. Jonathan, me, her. No extras. That's beautiful, I said. She watched my face. Is Grandma still mad? I chose my words like glass. Grandma is having a hard time with boundaries. She nodded slowly. Like when I don't want someone to take my toy. Yes, I said. Exactly like that. Thursday arrived without ceremony. Ms. Alvarez came with another woman, both wearing badges and neutral expressions. They shook hands. They spoke softly. Charlotte showed them her room without fear. She talked about school, about spelling tests, about how she liked pasta more than pizza. Ms. Alvarez smiled at her. You seem very loved. Charlotte smiled back. I am. They asked me questions at the table. Routine, meals, support. Jonathan answered when needed, never interrupting. The second woman checked boxes on a form. Before they left, Ms. Alvarez paused. Everything appears appropriate. We'll close this as unfounded. Thank you, I said. After the door closed, I sat down hard. Jonathan crouched in front of me. It's over, he said. No, I replied. That part is. The phone buzzed again before the quiet could settle. A text from Margaret. We need to talk. This went too far. I stared at the screen, then set the phone down without replying. Jonathan watched me. You okay? I am, I said. I just know now. Know what? That fear was the last thing they had. He nodded. That night, Charlotte slept with her drawing on the nightstand. I stood there longer than usual, listening to her breathe, letting the waiting fall away. Whatever came next would come with paperwork, not panic. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, thicker than mail should be. Margaret's handwriting stretched across the front, tight and controlled. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the counter and waited for Jonathan to come home. He read it first. Grandparent visitation. He said, voice flat, filed through an attorney. I took the papers from him. The language was formal, confident, rehearsed. Claims of sudden estrangement, emotional harm, best interests. They want access. I said, not reconciliation. Jonathan nodded. Control. We met with the attorney 2 days later. Carla was efficient, mid-40s, eyes sharp without being unkind. She skimmed the petition, then looked up at me. This won't hold, she said, but it will cost them time and money. And us, Jonathan added. Yes, Carla said, emotionally. She explained the process, responses, documentation, weeks, not days. She asked if anyone else would support Margaret's claim. My father, I said. If she pressures him? Carla tilted her head. Has he ever stood up to her? No, I said, but he might stand aside. That evening, Edward called. His voice sounded tired. I saw the paperwork, he said. She wants me to sign a statement. And, I said, I didn't. He replied, I won't. I closed my eyes. Thank you. I should have done more years ago, he said. I won't make it worse now. After we hung up, Jonathan reached for my hand. That matters. It does. I said, even late. A week passed. Then another. Carla filed our response. Calm, precise. The Child Services report. School records, photos, dates, no accusations. Just facts. Lillian texted me late one night. I didn't know how far she'd take it. She wrote. I replied. Neither did I. Another message followed. I'm sending what I can. It's not everything, but it's honest. The transfer arrived the next morning. $2,400. No note. Spencer didn't call. Margaret did. You've forced our hand, she said. You've humiliated us. You filed against my child, I said. There's no coming back from that. This is about family, she insisted. This is about access. I replied, you lost it. Her voice hardened. You think paperwork makes you untouchable? I think it makes the truth visible. I said. She hung up. Weeks later, Carla called with the update. Their attorney is withdrawing, she said. They're asking to dismiss, with prejudice. Jonathan said, already understanding. Yes, Carla confirmed, which means they can't refile. When I hung up, I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. Charlotte was at the table coloring. She looked up. Is it done? Yes, I said. She nodded, satisfied. Okay. Jonathan poured 3 glasses of water and slid one toward me. What now? Now, I said, we live. The law hadn't given me closure. It had given me space. And in that space, I could finally see how small their reach had become. 6 months passed without announcements, no apologies, no confrontations. Just distance, steady and intentional. Jonathan suggested the weekend away after Charlotte came home, waving a permission slip for a school trip, smiling like nothing in the world was fragile. We drove north. Phones silenced, conversations unforced. At the cabin, Charlotte claimed the window seat and declared it hers. Jonathan didn't argue. I didn't either. That night, we ate at the small table near the fireplace. Charlotte pushed her plate away and said, I like it here. Jonathan smiled. Me too. I nodded. We're staying tomorrow as well. Later, as we folded laundry together, Jonathan said, Your dad texted. What did he say? He said he's glad you're happy. That's new. I said. He didn't ask for anything. Jonathan added, That's newer. Charlotte joined us, dragging a framed photo she'd found in the drawer. An old family picture. Everyone smiling in the way people do when they think they're supposed to. Who's this? She asked. That was our family. I said. She studied it, then looked up. Are they coming here? No. I said. She considered that, then shrugged. Okay. We went down to the lake at sunset. Jonathan skipped stones with Charlotte while I stood a little apart, holding the frame. When Charlotte noticed, she walked over. You don't have to keep it, she said. I know. I replied. She waited while I set it on the dock bench instead of throwing it away. We're making new ones, she said. Yes, I said. We are. That night, after Charlotte fell asleep, I opened my laptop and wrote a short message. No accusations, no evidence, just clarity. This is my final communication. I am choosing distance. Please do not contact us again. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't check if it was read. I closed the laptop. Jonathan watched me. You good? I am, I said. Finally. The next morning, Charlotte asked if we could make pancakes. Jonathan burned the first batch. Charlotte laughed. I didn't correct him. On the drive home, Jonathan reached for my hand. You know people will have opinions. They always do. I said, if you've ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, or felt responsible for holding everyone together at your own expense, you're not alone. If this story sounds familiar, stay with us. There are more stories like this, and more ways to find your footing. Charlotte leaned forward from the back seat. Mom. Yes, I like our family. So do I said. We pulled into the driveway just as the sun dipped behind the houses. The door opened easily. The house felt steady. Inside, there was no silence to manage, no role to perform, only space, only us.